Shout out to G-Man Boxing.
Alright people, review of the week time. We could be going long on this episode. We really could. Because we have lots of fights to talk about. There was a lot of fights over the weekend. There's been some news coming out the last few days. There's a lot of talking points from Teofimo Lopez, Kambosos Jr. after the fact as well. So yeah, we got a lot to talk about. So let's talk about the card last night that happened with Teofimo Lopez and George Kambosos before we talk about what's gone on there and some of the statements that have been made. So obviously we know Teofimo Lopez lost. George Kambosos Jr. split decision. Should have been unanimous really. But that was a great fight. Potentially one of the fights of the year. I really truly enjoyed. I watched it live. I watched it again today. I really enjoyed that fight. Like, that fight was just I don't know what it was. Just even on the ring walk, you just got the impression something was in the air. And if there wasn't going to be an upset, it was going to be a fun fight. It was going to catch fire. And it caught fire instantly. I mean, as I said, Teofimo Lopez came out swinging for the fences. I couldn't get over how reckless he was in that first round. It actually surprised me. Because normally Teofimo Lopez isn't that reckless. And when that knockdown happened in the first round, it was a good shot. It was a very well-timed shot from Kambosos. Very well set up. I was like, oh my God, this just caught fire. This just literally caught fire. And look, I'll talk more about what was said after the fact, but let's just look at the card as well. Azinga Fulzi, he lost a unanimous decision to a Japanese fighter, Kenshi Ogawa. Now, I have seen Ogawa fight before. He got a gift decision over Tevin Farmer a couple of years ago. I think it was 2017. I think it was 2017, 2018. I think it was 2017. Now, subsequently, he failed the drugs test after that fight. So that actual win became a no decision. So he was in the fight last night. Looked powerful, definitely looked to have some punch and power. And actually, ironically, he's won the title back, which was stripped from him for failing the drugs test a few years ago. The IBF World Super Featherweight title. So it'll be interesting. He can definitely punch. He definitely has a little bit of ability there. I actually did catch the end of that fight because I woke up early enough to have seen the end of it. And there's definitely punching power there. It was a competitive fight for the most part, but the power of Ogawa definitely told. Raymond Ford getting a nice stoppage win over Felix Cabarello. His name rings a bell. Where have I seen him fight before? Hang on, I box rec him because that name rings a bell. He lost to Shakur Stevens. He lost to Robsy Ramirez. Who else did he fight? Because that name, I swear, I think I might have seen the Robsy Ramirez fight, but definitely there was another name there. But either way, look, he lost to Raymond Ford last night. Zhilei Zhang got a second round stoppage over Craig Lewis. Zhilei Zhang, right, is that Chinese heavyweight who's about 38, 39. He's well in his 30s. Eddie Hearn signed him, and I was just scratching my head. I was like, why exactly did you sign this guy? Now, apparently he's quite well known and popular in his native China, and that made perfect sense. I reckon they are going to cash him out as quick as anything. I reckon they are looking to get him a big fight, potentially in China against the name. I remember his last fight against Jerry Forrest, where he dropped Jerry Forrest in the first, second, and third round. And he went on to fortunately get a draw. I felt he was fortunate to get the draw. And he was absolutely spent by I think he actually had to go to hospital after it, if memory serves me right, unless I'm very much mistaken, because he was absolutely spent after the fact. So Zhilei Zhang he is fun to watch, I will say that, but he's extremely limited. I mean, like, it's just bizarre. Like, I mean, there's nothing else I can say about that. Another fight that happened in Arlington, Texas. Now, originally this was the first round knockout. The whole card's been changed to no decisions. So I don't know what's up there, but it was Frank Mir against Kubrat Pulev. If you haven't seen said fight, then I wouldn't, to be honest with you, I wouldn't recommend watching it because it was over very quickly. Frank Mir, no chance against Kubrat Pulev, even if Kubrat Pulev has seen better days. Pulev was able to knock Frank Mir out in the first round, knocked him out while still standing. And big up to Kubrat Pulev. A lot of fighters in that situation would have taken a free swing at Frank Mir because he was absolutely out on his feet, like a bit like Terry Harper, only I think this was worse because he was proper seeing stars. And the referee in the Terry Harper fight behaved extremely professionally, got in there very quick and prevented Terry Harper from getting hurt. What did this referee not do? Didn't do anything, he just stared at him. Now, Kubrat Pulev, to his credit, he didn't do anything. Some people would say killer instinct, but if you got a guy pretty much unconscious in front of you, like, realistically, what good is that? What good is that, realistically? But the referee didn't do zilch, just stared at him. I come to find out that this referee, I'll get his name for you here, that doesn't say it there, but I box wrecked that referee. Apparently he's done a lot of bare knuckle boxing contests, because BoxRec do list them, and that kind of made it, because bare knuckle boxing, I mean, they get absolutely shredded and the referees don't stop it. So, but it's still like, you have a fighter unconscious, and Kubrat Pulev was just kind of like, will I, won't I? And thankfully, because he would have really hurt Frank Mir really badly, real badly. Because Pulev's not a noted puncher, but if you give a 250-pound man a free shot on you, they're going to do some damage, serious damage. So that was that. I don't know why they're all no decisions. I know some of these were a mixture, like trade combat rules, and some of them were, I believe, a mixture of combat rules, trade combat. I thought that was a normal boxing match, but they had it listed as a first round knockout originally for Pulev. It's changed now to no decision. So anyway, look, it was more a kind of tricky kind of fight. It was a niche kind of fight. Now, the other main card that was on the US was Brandon Figueroa versus Stephen Fulton. Now, I picked Stephen Fulton to win this fight, but I gotta say, I did watch the fight after I'd done a live. I was impressed with Brandon Figueroa's punch output. Man, that guy can throw punches for days. That guy just does not stop throwing punches. Stephen Fulton did early on have some good moments of success. Personally, I felt that Stephen Fulton just nicked it. I preferred the cleaner work. 116, 112. I don't know if I agree with them scorecard. It was close. Probably a 5-7 kind of fight, to be honest with you. I don't have an issue with the even scorecard either, to be honest with you. But yeah, Figueroa was a very good fight. Like, that whole division, super bantamweight, Akhmadaliev. No wonder Michael Conlon got out of that division. Because he was trying to chase for... I'd say him and Adam Boot were like, the hell with this. I mean, I don't care if you can make the weight. Go and fight Lee Wood. Go and fight Lee. You are not... These guys would massacre you. Brandon Figueroa, Stephen Fulton. Yeah, I could see why he didn't stick around in that weight division long. On the undercard, Gary Antoine Russell. And I didn't see that fight, but it's a majority decision win over Alexander Santiago. So... That's interesting. I'll have to watch it. Gary Anton Russell is a fighter I actually do enjoy watching, so I'll have to have a look and see how that went. Now, O'Hara Davis fought, and I'll get the card up now because I'll touch on some of the other cards that happened. BoxRec haven't officially... Well, I'll let you know he got a knockout win because BoxRec haven't done it. Likewise did Badu Jack. Badu Jack fought a cruiserweight for the first time against a guy called Samuel Cross. Now, I seen the fight. Badu Jack weighed 199 pounds. Crazy to think he was a super middleweight world champion only a few years ago. Badu Jack looked alright. Even at cruiserweight, he looked big. Just to show how big a man he is. Like, he didn't look... when some people go from light heavy to cruiser, it's a big weight discrepancy. So they look a big light heavy, but they won't look a big cruiser. Well, Badu Jack looked a decent sized cruiser. It didn't look like someone who would go in, say, if you went in there against someone like a Vlasov or someone like that, a cruiser, you'd be kind of touch and go to see who's bigger, because Badu Jack is not a small cruiserweight, not from what I've seen. Carried the weight very well. Got a nice stoppage win, as too did Rocky Fielding, and as too did O'Hara Davis. That was on, I think that might have been, it's not really saying here, it was on an ESPN. I think it was in association with MTK and possibly Probella as well. Because as we know, Probella and MTK are working very close together. And it looks to be quite a good little setup they've got going on there, to be fair. So there was that. Jay Harris suffered another stoppage defeat. That's a back-to-back stoppage defeat to the body in his fight. This was his first ever fight at light flyweight, and I gotta say, I wasn't surprised he was stopped to the body, because on the scales he looked awful. Like, when the cheekbones are real coming out. That's what he looked. He looked real drawn on the scales, and yeah, like I get where he was coming from, moving down, because he was a big flyweight, and I know it's crazy. Someone's a big flyweight, you think move up, not move down. But I get where he was coming from. But I just think that going down in weight when you're already big at that weight, even if it's only 4 pounds, that's a lot, and I just don't think that was the right decision. I think that maybe was a hasty decision in hindsight, and maybe flyweight is his best division, because I just think that JR's been soft to the body before, but would those body shots have had the same effect if he'd had 4 pounds, if he'd not had to cut 4 extra pounds? Possibly. The big talking point from the weekend, obviously, and I'll go back onto it, is Teofimo Lopez, George Kambosos. That fight was fun. As I said, it was fun to watch. But the aftermath was something that we talked about. I've already talked about it briefly today. But everything else that's been said. So, for example, Teofimo Lopez Sr. has been very animated, to say the least, as well as Teofimo Lopez Jr. Lopez Jr. in the subsequent interviews after interrupted Kambosos and said basically, I won the fight by 10 rounds to 2, etc. To me, it was bizarre, and I was like, what? And when he said that, the fans actually booed him, and this was Teofimo Lopez's home. Like, he's the home fighter, home fans, they were booing him. So it kind of shows they knew who won the fight. Let's quote what Teofimo Lopez Sr. had to say here. It was an easy fight for him. He won every round. To me, he won every round. You give Kambosos 2 rounds, 3 rounds, even 4, but what happened was just horrible. So you give him 4 rounds with the knockdown. That's a close fight then. But he won more rounds than that. Teofimo Lopez, everyone knows he won the fight. Everyone was upset. They booed the decision in MSG. It's BS. It's a BS loss. I should never have fought with the zone. I should have stayed with Top Rank. This is what I'm saying. No rematch, man. My mistake was leaving my son at 135 pounds so long. We're going to go up to 140, get a fight in February, and then fight Josh Taylor. That doesn't change anything. And Josh Taylor subsequently came out because he was questioned by someone on Twitter. Why didn't he react? Why is he being so quiet? And Josh Taylor basically just said, the result says it all, don't kick a man while they're down. Big up to Josh Taylor. I gotta, Josh Taylor is a real stand-up guy. Real stand-up guy. I have a lot of time, a lot of respect for Josh Taylor. Him and Sonny Edwards and Anthony Fowler, 3 of them, absolute stand-up guys in my book. And I'll put Frank Buglioni in that list as well. All of them stand-up guys. But Josh Taylor, Teofimo Lopez should thank his lucky stars he wasn't there with Josh Taylor, to be honest with you, because I think he would have lit him up like a Christmas tree last night. Lopez Sr. is on about the rematch. There was no rematch clause for this, obviously, because it was a mandatory and because it went to purse bids. As far as I'm aware, if it goes to purse bids, rematches clause in mandatories don't happen if it's a purse bid. Obviously, with Eddie Hearn, he's been doing it with Anthony Joshua, which I don't like. I think it holds up the division, and I just think that this has only come about kind of recently with Klitschko and now Joshua. I just don't think it's needed, to be honest with you, with mandatories. Unless, and I don't mean a rematch clause, but unless you're in a mandatory fight and you get badly robbed, then yeah, I could see the sanctioned body ordering a rematch, and I wouldn't begrudge him that if it's in those scenarios, like you got badly robbed on the scorecards and we all saw it, then I can understand it. But if it's just a case of, well, you got beaten from pillar to post, but you got a mandatory and you got a rematch clause, I just don't accept that. I just think it's just holding things up. But anyhow, Lopez Sr.'s been really giving it a lot, hasn't he? At the end of the day, the fans know who won the fight. I think everyone I've spoken to, I don't think anyone has had Teofimo Lopez winning the fight. Surely when I watched it the first time, I did think it was closer. Upon further viewing, I think that the swing rounds I was kind of looking and giving to Teofimo, I ended up giving to Kambosos because he really did do that little bit more to take the rounds. In terms of what you said there, Senior, about if this fight had been on Top Rank, it would have been interesting, certainly. I don't know how that would have went if it was on Top Rank, because obviously Teofimo Lopez, Top Rank fighter, George Kambosos isn't. Neither guys have affiliation with the zone, as far as I'm aware. Lopez is obviously a Top Rank fighter. Kambosos is signed with Ludabella. Ludabella has worked with Eddie Hearn previously, but I don't think he's got like It's not like a Sauerland or someone like that where, back in the day when Eddie was on Sky would show a lot of Sauerland cards, matchroom fighters and thing would go back and forth. They'd be kind of shared. I know him and Kella are still close, but I don't know if it's anything like that with Ludabella or not. I don't know. But George Kambosos had his say on Lopez claiming he won the fight 10-2. I don't need to respond to that. The whole world look at what people are saying. He's delusional. He'll look back at it and go, I was wrong. He lost. A lot of fans doing that. I expect Teofimo Lopez will come out. He mightn't come out and say I lost. I don't think that's really in his nature. But I do think he will come out and say the fight was close. A bit like Anthony Yarde. Kind of say the fight was closer than I had it. I do think that will happen. No sooner did Kambosos win that we're hearing names like Devin Haney being mentioned. Ryan Garcia says he wants to fight him in his first fight back. Of course he does. People are asking, how will Tank Davis go? Jake Paul even uploaded a picture of Lopez on the canvas with him saying, in the picture, I won this fight, which I found that quite funny. Jake Paul actually, funnily enough, he had his press conference with Tommy Fury. Now Jake Paul was in, I believe, Puerto Rico on camera. Tommy Fury, Tyson and John were in a studio, and John Fury stole the show. He really did. I mean, I had a feeling something like that was going to happen because Jake Paul is a troll. That's just what he is. It's just in his nature. He rubs people up the wrong way. And John Fury is someone who doesn't play. He's not someone who sees the funny side of things. I always go back to the weigh-in for Fury Pianetta when Wilder actually thought John Fury was play. He even put his hand out to shake it with a big smile. And I think he only copped it really when John Fury tried to charge at him and was like, oh, this guy's not playing. Yeah, this guy isn't playing. I think Wilder thought it was kind of fun and games and he was like, oh, yeah, this guy's, he's not playing. And that is John Fury in a nutshell. I mean, that guy is as confrontational as anyone. Volatile, all that jazz. And I think genuinely, given half a chance, he would have tore that screen off and just smashed it on the ground if he thought it would be Jake Paul. He really did. Looking forward to this fight. Honestly, I am. I'm looking forward to this fight. I'll just say I am because it's something different, isn't it? It's something different. And I think there's entertainment to be had in this. And I actually went back and watched a couple of Jake Paul's fights. I watched the Ben Askren fight. Yeah, he's crude, but to be honest with you, right, there's ability there. Like, I have to say it, there is. I've seen people who've been in gyms for many a year not look as polished as Jake Paul has. Even to the way he throws his punches, he gets good extent. He's not a bad little fighter. I'm like, he's not a world beat. Obviously, he's doing this. He's a YouTuber. But it's going to be fun, him and Tommy Fury. It is genuinely going to be fun. Like, I'm going to stay up and watch it. I'm intrigued. In terms of other fights that have been announced, Amir Khan versus Kell Brook, official announcement tomorrow. So snap it in your calendar, tomorrow in Manchester. Boxers Ben Shalom has confirmed that with TalkSport. So Amir Khan, Kell Brook. Now I already talked about that video, or talked about that fight already during the week. February of next year. It is quite remarkable that now that Amir Khan was signed to Eddie Hearn briefly in 2018. Kell Brook, I don't think he's signed by anyone now at the minute. But it is quite remarkable that now that Eddie Hearn's not part of it, it gets made. Yes, I will admit it's about 6-7 years, past the sell-by date in terms of seeing both guys in their peak. But I do believe, and I said it about Jake Paul, Tommy Fury, there's entertainment at all levels. Will I watch it? Yes, I'll watch it. Will I pay for it? Probably not. But I'll definitely watch this fight. I'll definitely watch it for nostalgic reasons. I talked about that it just brings me back to that time when I was really about as hardcore as you want to get. I was watching everything in terms of boxing. And look, I don't know. The build-up will be funny. I think it will. I think Amir Khan will be really trying to get under Kell Brook's skin. And when I see him in the ring, and I think it's the fact that I have an idea. Kell Brook is pretty much shot. I saw that from the Crawford fight. The timing isn't there, the punch resistance isn't there. Amir Khan didn't look good against Crawford either. He didn't. He stuck at it a lot longer, to be fair. But I don't know where Amir Khan's at, because he didn't look good in the Vargas fight, didn't look good in the Crawford fight. Realistically, the last time he looked good was against Devin Alexander. That was the end of 2014, 7 years ago. almost 7 years ago now. So I don't know where Amir Khan's at. So both guys, God knows where they are. I'm telling you now, this fight's going to be interesting. It's probably going to be their both guys' last fight. So why look? I don't mind it. I really don't. I don't mind this fight at all. The Charlo Castano rematch is now reportedly set for February 28th, so the week after, in Houston, Texas. I like that fight. I do wonder why it's happening in Texas and not in neutral territory. I know, I think at the time they first fought, Texas was one of the few states in America that was fully open to fans. I believe most of them, if not all of them, are now. In fact, I'm sure all of them are now. So surely they could have done that fight in neutral territory, because Charlos are obviously from Texas. So look, I don't know. I felt that Castano was extremely unlucky not to get the decision in the first fight. I really do. I felt he won the first fight. I felt that Charlo was very fortunate that he got a draw. I thought he lost. So we'll see how this goes in the rematch. I would favour Castano in that fight. Although saying that, I'll make a prediction video for that close to the date. That's an interesting fight though, definitely. Eubank Jr. versus Liam Williams. It's now official. It has been rescheduled. It's not been postponed, just rescheduled. We know this fight was meant to take place December the 11th. I think we were all looking forward to that. Came out last week that it was off due to an injury, but we heard nothing about it. Like, we didn't hear an announcement from Liam Williams. Eubank Jr. called him out and said, look, what's going on? It's been rescheduled until the 29th of January. The fight's postponed due to an aggravated shoulder injury. It can be treated without surgery. So basically, it's kind of almost like it's like a niggle that maybe he just feels, look, I'm not 100%. This could maybe go. You never know in the ring, and better be safe than sorry. At least the fight's not been binned. You know, at least it's not been binned. We'll have to wait an extra 6 weeks or so, give or take. But at least it's not been banned. It's still a very good fight, and I suppose you could look at it like this. Look at the positive. It's a good way to ring in the new year. You know, January is normally a dry month for boxing, even when things are, you know, firing all cylinders. January is normally a quiet month for boxing, so we have a nice little fight to get ourselves, you know, entertained with in the new year. Well, towards the end of January anyway. But I like this fight. I'm looking forward to it. Now, here's an interesting one as well. Let me see it. Don King. Didn't think you'd hear that name in this video, did you? Don King has claimed that Ilunga Makabu will defend his WBC Cruiserweight title against mandatory challenger Tabiso Machunu on the same date, January 29th in Ohio. Claims Canelo Alvarez will be ringside. Now, Eddie Reynoso has said that they will try and do a deal with Ilunga Makabu, Tabiso Machunu, I should say, so that they can make Canelo versus Makabu in May. If we can negotiate that, we'll move ahead. If not, there are other options. Interesting. Now, Machunu and Makabu have already fought before. Makabu won that fight, although Machunu absolutely lit Ilunga Makabu up in that fight, and he gassed in the 11th round, and literally he nothing left in that 11th round. Go back and watch the fight. It's on YouTube. It's interesting. For those who don't know, Don King is the promoter, and I don't know why Ilunga Makabu signed with Don King. It's beyond me. I mean, I don't understand why anyone would sign with Don King. I mean, even now he's washed beyond belief. Like, he's got hardly any shows going on. I mean, he's put on one show in 5 years, which is crazy. And even then, his track record. So look, I don't know where that came from, but yeah, he's with Don King, and Don King looking to get Machunu versus Makabu. I wouldn't mind seeing the rematch personally. If, honest to God, if you want my opinion, who'd win that fight? If Machunu is firing on all cylinders, he wins that fight, I think, anyway. Makabu's defense isn't great. Machunu is a very good, very technical, very slick boxer. Very good boxer is Tabiso Machunu. Not the biggest puncher in the world, but very good boxer. Ask Eddie Chambers. He was remember when Eddie Chambers dropped down to cruiserweight? That was his first and only fight at cruiserweight, and he got absolutely schooled by Tabiso Machunu. Absolutely schooled in that fight. It was over 10 rounds. That's interesting. I wonder, would Canelo still take that fight? Because it's a very different style. You know, Makabu is a big target. He's going to come at Canelo. He's quite easy to hit. He's got a good chin, to be fair, he does. But Machunu is a different kettle of fish altogether. Machunu will be moving. He has long arms. He's not big. In fact, Machunu was listed about 5'11". I suspect he's closer to 5'9". So he's kind of more similar height to Canelo, a little bit taller. But he's got long arms. He's a very good, slick boxer. That's a tough fight for Canelo. That's a different kettle of fish altogether. Kazuto Ioka will face Gerwin Akajas. Great fight. Great fight. In an IBF and WBO super flyweight unification. It's on New Year's Eve. Yeah, Japan always put on New Year's Eve cards. They always tend to do that, and I like it. They're always good cards as well. Like, I mean, I can't remember the last time there was one that was poor. They're always extremely good little cards that they have on in Japan on New Year's Eve. That's a great little fight. I would favour Kazuto Ioka in that fight. I think Nkahas, he's kind of stagnated a bit in recent years. Like, there was a lot of hype about him when he beat, was it Israel Gonzalez he beat in 10 rounds? But I think there was hype around him at that time. And that might have even been I think that was on one of Manny Pacquiao's undercards. Well, he definitely fought, I think, on a Pacquiao undercard at one stage. Might have been the Jeff Horn card. But then he had a draw where he looked a bit lackluster. I forget who that was against, actually, now, funny enough. But since then, he's just kind of been there. You know, the other champions, you know, Chocolatito, Estrada, Ioka, they're kind of there, and he's just kind of in the background. I suspect, like, Ioka, his last fight was competitive, very competitive. He had a great win against Tanaka, I forget how you pronounce his name, but that was a great win, a great knockout, devastating knockout. You know, if you haven't seen that, go back and watch the knockout. It was a beautiful left hook, landed as hard as you, like, that was a hard shot, very hard shot. So that's a good little fight for New Year's Eve, bringing the new year in style. AJ insists that he is not. Oh, here's an interesting one, right. So AJ gave an interview at IFL. Right, he gave an IFL interview where he was basically talking about stepping aside for AJ or for Fury versus Usyk, and he shut it down instantly, and then he kind of backtracked a little bit and kind of contradicted himself a bit. Now, I'm not going to touch on that too much because it might already be up, or I might leave it till later today. But either way, I've done a separate video on it, so I'm not going to go in too much detail on it. But all I got to say is, having watched that IFL interview, it's an interesting listen. That's what I'll say. It's just, I was listening to it and I was like, what's he saying? And like, does he want step aside money? Is he saying, you know, if it's big enough, I'll take it? Or is he shutting it? Because I think even Coogan was kind of like, he was even saying to him, I don't want to put words in your mouth. And AJ was probably like, don't. But he's like, can I gather this is what you're saying? So it was an interesting one now, I have to say, very interesting. Golden Boy are reportedly on the verge of a new deal with the Zone. That's good. Well, that is good. The more we have, the better. Golden Boy haven't really been doing as many shows this year as they have in recent years. Obviously, they lost Canelo. That was a big blow to them. But they do have guys like Garcia, Munguia, Virgil Ortiz Jr., who are all excellent fighters. And, you know, I think that there was a rumour mill going around the Zone we're going to bid Golden Boy. So obviously, if they're getting the 3-year deal, they're obviously happy enough with them. And they've got some good start. Like Ryan Garcia, you think they'd want to keep hold of him because he just brings the load. His following, his fan base is crazy. Like how many he has. Munguia is going places. You know, he's getting the fan base for himself. Virgil Ortiz, I reckon, will. So although they don't have the biggest, probably in-depth roster of fighters, they definitely have fighters who have the potential to have pulling power. If not, well, Ryan Garcia already has it. So the Zone, I would have thought, would want to keep that. Tank Davis on Keith Thurman. We know who Keith Thurman is. The guy that says many things but don't do nothing. When was the last time he fought? I agree with you there, Tank Davis. I really do agree with you there. Yeah, he's done absolutely zilch, has Keith Thurman, since the Manny Pacquiao loss. That was over 2 years ago now, and I wonder whether he will come back or not, because he had the inactivity spell after Danny Garcia win. And that really was the last time we saw one time. He had the spetch of inactivity after the Garcia win. Came back against Josecito Lopez. Looked a bit powerful early on, but then faded quite badly and was hurt a couple of times. And then lost to Pacquiao, and that's it. I haven't heard anything since. I think the hunger is gone from Thurman. I think the hunger left. After the Garcia fight. I guess he kind of he was getting well paid, and I guess he kind of felt, I've done what I need to do. That's what I think may have happened with Keith Thurman, because I just don't, even if he comes back, I don't think we'll see the same doggedness of him. I don't think we won't see one time. That's what I don't think. I don't think we'll see one time again, in terms of if he comes back that one time. The guy who was fighting guys like, I can't remember his name now, the guy that Errol Spence knocked out, his name escapes me, but guys like him, you know, I mean, Thurman in his day was one of my favourite fighters to watch. Dmitry Bivol will defend his WBA light heavyweight title on December 11th in Russia against a guy called Umar Salamov. I'm going to be honest, I've never ever heard of Umar Salamov. Wait to see now, I'll look at his box rec or something, and I'll say like, oh, that fight? Yeah, I've seen that fight. That's happened sometimes with fighters. There have been fighters who've been named, or I've read on this and named, and I've been like, I don't know who that is. And then the minute I go on their box rec, I'm like, oh, that guy, yeah, I seen his fight. Yeah, I seen that fight. So that's kind of that. But as far as I'm aware, I don't think I've heard of him. Dmitry Bivol, it's good to see him getting back active again. You know, he was inactive for a while. I like watching Dmitry Bivol. Some people say he's boring. From a technical point of view, he is very good to watch. But I would like to, hopefully he can make a step. Maybe fighting back in Russia will help him make that statement. We'll see. But that's pretty much it. We've been going, I think, for nearly a half hour, so I'm going to call that one here. And yeah, hope you enjoyed this video. I hope that I set you up nicely for the day and the week ahead, and I hope we get some interesting news this week. It's going to be fun to see kind of what happens this week. Is there any card on this weekend? Someone wants to remind me. I don't know if there is or not. I mean, my dates nowadays are kind of gone all over the shop with cards. I know there was one on December the 11th, but I don't know about this week. Anyone wants to remind me, they can. For now, lads and lasses, I'll leave you with that. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you all have a great week, great day. Hope you all get some good news or something good like that happens. For now, lads and lasses, I'll talk to you. Peace.